joining this
lecture, and if suppose others are interested, they can listen it on YouTube later on.
Okay.
Right.
So before going into the lecture, let me introduce the speaker. We are very thankful to Dr. Professor C.R. Patil for accepting to be the speaker on this first webinar series of this platform, that is PERF, which is created to bridge the gap between industry and academia. And we are very grateful that our first speaker is from academia, and he has more than 20 years of experience in teaching as well as in research. He has published several publications in international journals with a cumulative impact of more than 130, and he has received several awards from various government organizations like MHRD, PMMMT Innovator Teacher Award in 2016, CCRH Young Scientist Award in 2016 from Ayush, and Career Award for Young Teachers in 2009 from AICT. So he has also, for his credit, he has 4 patents, and he has several research collaborations across India and also international collaborations. And with this brief introduction, I would ask Dr. C.R. Patil to start today's session.
Okay. Hello, everyone. This is Dr. C.R. Patil. Many of us have met earlier, we have interacted earlier, and it's pleasure to interact it in this particular manner. Okay, but particularly this kind of interactions are rare, where without any formalities, okay, people from industry and academia come together and they discuss about each other's issues. Okay, now particularly when it comes to problems, we people in academia have more problems as compared to industry people. And then obviously such kind of discussions are started or should be started by academicians only. Okay, industry people, they can solve our problems to greater extent, but then many times I also feel that in academia also we are doing something that is sufficiently we can say creditable, sufficiently useful to society. Okay? We cannot say that we are doing some great kind of research activities in Indian academia, but still there are chances that something that we are doing in our poorly equipped laboratories may has some significance in terms of benefits to the society. Okay? So with this particular understanding, I thought that whatever Nagaraj and Yunus, they're doing on this WhatsApp group since a long. Particularly, I like when someone posted a problem that they are facing in their studies in industry. Okay? That problem was related to effect of a single dose. The researcher had found that a single dose of drug is showing some activity, and then that activity is not seen at higher or lower doses. So this was a problem posted on this WhatsApp group by someone, and then there was some discussion about this particular problem. So this particular discussion attracted me to this group, and then I thought that if suppose we really come up with some discussions of this kind, where we have a systematic approach for interacting with each other, and then we really try to put forth our problems from academia side, and suppose industry people or other academicians try to solve that kind of problem, then it will be a really great thing. Okay, with this particular intention, I thought that this is something like a social activity which is coming up, and it is quite necessary. Okay, I'm happy that at least 16 pharmacologists at present are with me, and they're spared their Sunday evening, okay, which is a high time for enjoyment, but they are sitting with me here and they're trying to listen to me regarding my experiences about what I do in my laboratory. I do not call it as research laboratory, it is a training laboratory particularly, but sometimes we come across some findings for which we need someone's support to understand and discuss. Okay, So now I'm sharing my presentation. This will be a 40-45 minutes presentation where I'll be discussing with you an important aspect that has come to my mind regarding alternative medicines and research in alternative medicines.
Yeah, excuse me, sir. Just a second. Hold on. Yunus here.
Yeah.
Actually, due to network issues and all, I wasn't able to log in on time. Apologies for that. Before you start, I would like to introduce you to the audience. They should know whom they are, who's the resource person is. So today we have Professor C.R. Patil from Maharashtra. He's been in teaching in more than 20 years. He did his PhD from Karad Government Pharmacy College, and after that he's been in teaching, and he has published several publications. He has published several articles in national and international journals, good journals, and he's also a resource person for many of the such webinars and conferences, etc. Basically, he kind of enjoys sharing the knowledge and also sharing his problems and looking for the answers. So that's how I understood Professor C.R. Patil right from my college days. Other than these academic, he also had received award as best teacher and young scientist award from different organizations, and he also had a stint in software, developing a software for simulating experimental pharmacological experiments. With he has done this with in collaboration with the Elsewhere, and he's thinking of taking it a step ahead in the coming days. Hopefully, we'll see that very soon. So today he's going to talk about alternative medicines, complementary and alternative medicines. His perspectives on that, and he would also like to seek perspectives from the people who are into modern drug research. Basically, this is to people who are into industry to understand what happens on the alternative side of the medicine, and for the alternative side medicines, researchers to understand how things happens at the modern drug discovery. Can we come to a common ground? That's what we want to understand through this webinar. Now I'll give it to Professor C.R. Patil, and he would start the session now. Thank you.
Thanks, Yunus. Thanks for nice introduction. Let's directly start with the discussion now. See, particularly I worked in academia for 20 years, and whoever is having a similar kind of experience like me knows that the laboratories in which we are working, the kind of facilities, particularly animal house facility or research facility or in vitro kind of cell culture laboratories and all, are very poor in infrastructure as well as the resources that we get, or chemicals that or antibodies that we get for our research work. Okay? And then it is a problematic situation for academicians to really carry out full-fledged research, because that is a part of our activity as academicians. But still, when it comes to research projects, particularly PG research projects and PhD research projects, there is always some problem that we face, particularly problem related to selection of research topics. Okay. As far as I know, at least 80 to 90% of teachers or professors, they rely on alternative medicines for research projects at PG and PhD level. That's what is my experience. Wherever I have gone for conducting PG vivas or PhD vivas, always alternative medicines, herbal medicines, or some phytoconstituents were the part of that research activity. Now question comes to my mind, why we go for this particular thing? The answer that I have decided for myself is that we cannot carry out full-fledged drug discovery kind of activities in academic setup as far as our Indian institutes are concerned. Okay, and because of that, generally we go for alternative medicines and complementary medicines. But this does not train our students sufficiently to actually contribute to the industries when they are initially going there. Okay. With this particular feeling in mind, I just wanted to share what is understanding about complementary alternative medicines from the academician's perspective, and whether we are really going to utilize the academic research, or at large the research that happens in complementary alternative medicines for real social purposes, for real treatment of some disorders. Okay. Let me ask you something, that this is a research paper which was published just in last month. Okay. In this research paper, the authors have demonstrated that a homeopathic medicine, arnica, it affects genetic expressions of macrophages. Okay. Now, similar kind of paper was earlier published in PLOS ONE journal, which is a respectable journal. Similar concentrations they had used, and that proved that it affects the inflammatory pathways in some extent, to some extent. But if you concentrate on the amount of drug which is added to this particular assay media, the amount is very, very less. Okay? Let me explain to you a little more about this. You can see the concentrations are given here in terms of 3C, 5C or 15C. Okay? Particularly, what the authors have done here is, or researchers have done here is, they have put very small quantity of Arnica montana extract in the assay media. What is the amount of that particular drug? It is 15C. 15C means 10 raised to minus 15. Okay, 10 raised to minus 15 grams per liter, you can say, is the concentration. Means the concentration here is in femtograms. Okay. It is not picogram, it is femtogram concentration. And there, the researcher is saying that no, this medicine is sufficiently affecting genetic expressions in human macrophages, and because of that, it will exert some action even in human beings. Okay. So the question comes, whether can we say that a plant extract can really exert some significant action at femtogram concentrations. Okay. Similar other papers are there. See, this is another paper which is published in Journal of Alternative and Complementary Medicines, where again cytokine expression in leukocytes has been shown to get suppressed significantly by homeopathic preparations. Okay. Here also the authors claim that they have performed the protocols very seriously. They have repeated their treatment, or they have repeated their samples, they repeated their protocols, and they have found reproducibility in this particular kind of research activities which they are doing. Now, question comes whether a medicine, a plant extract, which is a homeopathic medicine, now quite controversial, we all know, can exert such kind of actions in cell culture experiments. Okay. You will find hundreds of such examples on internet. In very good journals, there are hundreds of such examples where people have proved that homeopathic medicines are exerting some biological action. Okay. Now, as the subject itself is very, very controversial, I know that my friends from industry, they will not even look at this kind of research papers where a homeopathic medicine has been shown to exert some biological effect. Okay. Because we have already decided, we have already accepted that homeopathy is a quackery. Homeopathy is placebo or something like that. Okay. And because of this, we generally do not look at this kind of research activities. Unfortunately, what happened is 10 years back, I stumbled on effect of one of the homeopathic medicines. It was anti-inflammatory effect. So all academicians will agree that majority of us today have platysma methods with us. The protocol is comparatively easy. Carrageenan we can get easily. So this one model we were repeatedly using for our PG studies. There we found that one homeopathic medicine exerts very prominent anti-inflammatory activity in Carrageenan model. Okay. You believe me, we have repeated this study 15 to 20 times, taking fresh animals. Okay, so it was a kind of obsession for me and my students to really check whether this medicine exerts some action or not. Okay. even though the medicine was from homeopathy, we all knew that it is controversial, but if suppose it is exerting some action, should we go ahead for studying such kind of drugs or not? Okay. Friends, I really continue my work on this particular medicine for almost 10, 12 years. And repeatedly I was finding that the drug exerts biological activity, anti-inflammatory activity is very strong. Then as and when facilities became available, we started to perform some cell culture related assays. We tried to estimate cytokine levels. We tried to estimate cytokine levels in animals also, which were challenged with lipopolysaccharide. There also, we found that in very, very small concentration, a plant extract exerts biological activity. Let me tell you what is concentration of this particular medicine. This medicine is Restox, Toxicodendron pubescens. Okay, this is a plant which is known to cause contact dermatitis in human beings. But in homeopathy, it is used to treat inflammation, particularly skin-related inflammation or other inflammatory reactions. Now, the concentration which we used for the study was 6 CH, means it is 10 raised to minus 12 grams per ml. Okay? The concentration comes to picograms or femtograms. That is the amount that we are administering to animals. Okay? So each dose that we are administering to a mouse is in femtograms, very small quantity. And still it exerts very significant suppression of cytokine levels. Okay? So this is something really disturbing for a pharmacologist also. If I tell you that there is a plant, its extract exerts prominent cytokine suppressing activity at femtogram per animal dose, you are literally administering few femtograms of that drug to the animal, to mouse, and it suppresses cytokine expression that is induced by lipopolysaccharide. This is something disturbing. Okay, no one who is believing in pharmacological principles will accept this kind of results, right? But let me tell you, friends, this particular study we repeated in R&D department of a multinational company, where I was not directly going into the laboratory. I had given this labeled samples of my test drug to that R&D scientist, and I just requested him to check whether really even in R&D departments they get similar results or not. Okay? I had not shared any protocol with them. I just shared my labeled, is coded drug solutions, and I had given one blank solution also which did not contain any medicine. Okay? I had kept them hidden. So this was a blinded kind of evaluation. And to surprise of even the scientists, even they found that this homeopathic medicine suppresses interleukin 17 concentration in mice, which was induced by imiquimod. Okay. Similarly, LPS induced cytokine levels were suppressed by this drug at very, very less concentration. Now, as a pharmacologist, this becomes very challenging. Even though this is academic kind of research, see, no company, no medical company will invest any money in testing homeopathic drug. Okay? This is known to everyone, because these medicines are not going to give you any profit in terms of money. They will be very, very cheap medications. Okay? And that is the reason why no one is interested in this kind of research. But still, if you really look at what is happening after administration of Rust toxicodendron to experimental animals, I am sure that you will be getting similar kind of results in your laboratories also. Now question comes whether we should look at these results or not. As pharmacologists, isn't it challenging for everyone to check whether these kind of medications really exert some actions or not? You see, homeopathy, if you see the use of homeopathy in society, almost 30% of the population in India even today relies on homeopathic medicines. Okay? Whenever a disease becomes chronic, majority of us, at least 30% of us, which has been proved through surveys, that people, 30% of the people still prefer homeopathic treatments, and majority of them continue on homeopathic treatments because they find some benefit out of them. Now question comes whether such kind of academic findings which are coming up, whether our industry counterpart should have some desire to check at least such kind of effects which are very promising in their research labs or not. No doubt there are many restrictions, many problems are there. But if suppose your academic friends come across some very interesting finding, will you help them in reproducing these particular results in standard setups? That is a big question that I wanted to share with all of you. And that was the reason why I accepted to conduct this particular first lecture. So friends, these alternative medicines which we are talking about, alternative medicines contain Ayurveda, Siddha, Unani, homeopathy, many other kind of modalities of treating diseases. And then it is important to check whether, let it be industry or academia, we are really conducting research on alternative medicines properly or not. That is the biggest question worth asking. Because what happens is, in academia, the research that is going on is related to publication of a paper. Okay, if suppose you are having 4 students working under you, and at the end of year you are able to publish 2 or 3 research papers, then you are considered as a successful academic researcher, because there is no other parameter for deciding what you are doing in your laboratory. Okay, I'm sure that my academic friends, they will accept this particular statement, that we are not very much looking at actual utilization of the research that we are doing. Okay? Or very rarely we go to our industry friends to check whether our results are really valid in their setup or not. Okay? And when this Nagaraj and Yunus, they said that they're trying to bring industry people and academicians together on a single platform, I thought that this is the right opportunity where I can share this opinion with all of you, that even these alternative medicines can have very striking effects in certain conditions, and such effects can be proved through validated experimental pharmacological assays. Okay? Now let's go to actual today's scenario, where we all have come across many funny claims, many failures, many problems, many misunderstandings, many ambiguities regarding even the allopathic medicines as far as this COVID condition is concerned. Okay? All of us know that at least 10 to 15 different medications or medicines, allopathic medicines, were claimed to be effective. And again, after a few days, people said that no, they are not effective. They cannot be used for treatment of COVID. They are not having any advantage. And there was continuous confusion about treatment of COVID. This has happened. Okay? And we all are witnessing even today. Yesterday, when I was talking with Bannappa, Dr. Bannappa from ICMR laboratory, he said that now bradykinin hypothesis is coming up. Means we'll be having a list of other few medicines which will be claimed to be effective. And after a few days, people will say that no, they are not effective. Okay? Means even with a very well-defined protocols, very well-defined plan for development of drugs, there is such confusion even about modern medicines. Okay? Obviously, such confusion is going to be there about alternative and complementary medicines. Okay? But that is where we can come across certain other cases. Okay? For example, even in case of Ayurvedic medicines, we all know the history of Coronil. This was a medicine brought in market by Patanjali, and initially they claimed it to be effective in treatment of corona, but there was again some issue related to actual efficacy or proving of the efficacy in clinical trials, and then that medicine was withdrawn from market. And then there was issues related to use of Ayush medicines also. Okay. But friends, everyone who is attending this particular lecture, let me ask you, did you consume few pills of arsenic album or no? Even governments, state governments and central government, even Ayush ministry, they circulated a pamphlet stating that arsenicum album, this is a homeopathic medicine which can to some extent suppress the symptoms of this particular corona. Okay? And all of you have consumed this arsenic album. Now question comes, if there is sufficient confusion about allopathic medicines also, why we are not giving similar weightage to our other medications now? Why we are not saying that even in alternative medicines there can be few compounds, there can be few herbal treatments which can be equally effective. Okay? But similar level of attention is not given to this kind of medications. The reason is we are all biased towards small molecule kind of drugs. No doubt they have come through a very rigorous process of drug development. But even these alternative medicines are acting similarly. Okay? Even alternative medicines are coming up after sufficient use. There is a history for the use of them. Now question is whether testing these medications, let them be Ayurvedic or homeopathic, are they really having some significance in pharmacological research or not? That is the big question that disturbs me. Okay? Whether someone should really conduct a clinical trial to check whether arsenic album is active or not. We are not even asked about that. Because this medication was very cheap, we all consumed it and we forgot about it. Okay. Whether systematic clinical trials are conducted or not, no one bothered about arsenic album at least. Okay. So whether it was really beneficial or not, even Ayush cannot claim anything about that. That is the status of research in alternative medicines. Okay. We have to check whether really we can change this particular status or not. Okay. What I'm showing you now is the frustration that Ayush ministry had after publishing the pamphlets for Ayush medicines in treatment of corona. Okay. Within a couple of months after publishing that pamphlet, publishing those guidelines to consume some Ayurvedic medicines, some Unani medicines, some homeopathic medicines for treatment of corona, at once Ayush ministry had to publicize, had to give this directive to all government bodies that, see the language of this particular letter, order which was sent by Government of India, Ayush Ministry to all stakeholders, that they have said that if suppose someone claims that Ayush medicines can be used in treatment of COVID-19, then this will be considered as an offense. Okay? And Ayush Ministry said that legal provisions and such actions will be taken against the people who publicize or advertise Ayush related claims in COVID-19 treatment. You can understand the kind of frustration which is involved in this kind of claims related to alternative medicines or studies related to alternative medicines. But this problem is going to continue still, because these alternative medicines themselves are a very conflicting, very confusing field. Okay? So based on this particular background, I want to discuss with you what are real alternative medicines. Do we have some definitions for them? When we are, say I'm working on Tulsi, should I call it as alternative medicine or not? Okay. Are there fixed definitions for this? Is there any correlation between the theory of Ayurveda and modern understanding of disease process? Is there any correlation about principles of homeopathy and modern science? That's what is a big question, and pharmacologists need to think about it. Whoever is working on medicines, particularly alternative medicines, they need to answer all these questions. Then, can we really rationalize their use? Another disturbing question is, can we really add a medicine in Ayurveda today? Or we have to just rely on whatever is recorded in old books? Can there be a new drug discovery in Ayurveda? That is a question. Okay. So such disturbing questions continue. And as far as alternative medicines are there, we are unable to answer even simple questions. Okay. Whoever is working in pharmacology now, if suppose I ask you what is mainstream medicine and what is conventional medicine, we rarely look at these definitions. If suppose I ask you whether Ayurvedic medicines are complementary and alternative medicines in India, can we call them as alternative medicines, Ayurvedic medicines? The answer, majority of us cannot answer even this question. Now, let me ask you whether homeopathic medicines are considered as alternative medicines. Can we consider them as complementary medicines? Even this question is difficult to answer. There are some other additions which are done by governments, like Sowa Rigpa. I know none of the participants, none of the attendants of this particular discussion know what is Sowa Rigpa, right? But this is a kind of medicine practice which has been included in Ayush ministry, which is included in the Ayush type of medications by Government of India just last year. Okay. Means even the definitions of alternative medicines, the kind of medications which are considered as alternative medicines, all these things keep on changing. Okay. And that's what is happening about Ayurvedic medicines, Sowa Rigpa or homeopathy. It is difficult to answer whether they are really alternative medicines or not. Okay. Let me share with you a funny incident now. See, when initially Ayush Ministry published about alternative medicines, guidelines were published. At that time, everyone claimed that that particular guideline, that particular directive was very thoughtfully prepared by experts in Ayush systems of medicines. Okay? That was widely circulated, that was endorsed by government also. Later on, government had to withdraw those particular guidelines, saying that no, there is no sufficient evidence for this particular type of medicines. Then one day, Ayush Minister, Dr. Sripad Naik, he claimed that Ayush medicines are promotive medicines. Okay. And considering this class, promotive class of medicines, they had prepared those directives. Now again, let me ask you whether we have come across any definitions of promotive medicines really. Do we know what are promotive medicines? We do not look at such definitions because we consider a drug as a drug. Okay? There cannot be anything that is alternative. Can we say that this is alternative drug or a complementary drug or an integrative drug? There cannot be something like that. Okay? Why this particular controversy was so properly highlighted because of Corona is, this is a situation where everyone asks whether the medicine is really effective or not. And when we look at a medicine asking whether really it is going to be effective or not, the real problem starts. Okay? And that has happened about all these types of medicines which are not allopathic medicines. Everyone is now questioning whether they are really effective or not. If suppose there was no Corona pandemic, then still probably we could have happily continued with all other kind of medicines. We would have never questioned authority of Ayurveda, authority of homeopathy, or authority of Unani medicines in treating a disease. This rarely happens. But as today the pandemic has got a very serious form, we are asking this question whether this medicine is really effective or not. Okay? Really whether it has been tested through systematic drug discovery process or not. Earlier we did not ask about it. And friends, let me share with you that there is sufficient confusion even about the definitions of these medications. when we say alternative medicine, worldwide there have been efforts to define what are alternative medicines or complementary medicines. Okay. According to National Center for Complementary and Alternative Medicines, NIH, National Institute of Health, they have tried to define the word alternative or complementary in two different ways. They said that if suppose you are using a type of medicine along with conventional medicine, along with allopathic medicine, then you can call it as complementary medicine. That is the meaning of word complementary. And if suppose you are using a medicine in place of allopathic medicine, you can call it as alternative medicine. Now ask yourself whether Ayurveda is complementary or alternative. Are we using Ayurveda along with allopathic medicines? The answer is not very strong yes. Okay. Are we using Ayurveda in place of allopathic medicines? The answer is no. In majority of the cases, we do not even today take Ayurveda as an alternative to allopathy. Okay. Other organizations throughout the world have again tried to define this particular word. And in definition of alternative complementary medicines, Cochrane collaboration has said that alternative medicines, they contain many other kind of medications, modalities and practices which are accompanying with theories and beliefs, okay, other than those intrinsic to politically dominant health system. Okay, this is the definition which has been given by Cochrane collaboration regarding alternative medicines. What they are saying is the alternative medicines are those medicines which are not politically dominant, okay, and about which there are some theories and beliefs, and they are used for treatment of some diseases. Okay. And in a particular culture, there is some historical record for that particular type of therapy. Again,
Excuse me, just a second. I would like to
okay.
Speak, Professor C.R. Patil. There is some person by name Laddu Praveen whose camera is on and he is not, not in appropriate dressing also, and he is visible to everybody. Not in appropriate dressings. So could you just remove him or turn off his camera?
Okay, I'll turn.
Some name Laddu Praveen. I don't know who the person is.
I'll stop this camera. Let's continue with this discussion now.
Yeah.
Now question comes whether Ayurveda is prominent medical system in India or no. Are we accepting that Ayurveda is not a prominent medical system? Otherwise, it should not be called as alternative medicine system. It should be called as India's mainstream medicine system. Okay. Even this is a disturbing question. If we check Cochrane definition, even British Medical Association has tried to define this complementary alternative medicines in their own way. Okay. So what I want to highlight here is, even we do not know what are complementary alternative medicines. There is no worldwide accepted definition for complementary and alternative medicines. Each country, each regulatory authority has tried to define it in its own way, according to their convenience, according to their understanding. Okay. Now, when such huge confusion is there about definitions, we generally look at World Health Organization. Okay. World Health Organization also has tried to define what are complementary, what are alternative, what are traditional medicines. Okay. And there they have said that the term traditional medicine should be used to indigenous medicine systems of particular country, like Chinese medicine, Arabic medicine, Unani medicine, etc. Okay. And when we are saying complementary or alternative medicines or traditional medicines, there is a possibility that, see, this is what WHO is saying, there is a possibility that whatever practices are there, whatever therapies are there, their principles may or may not be logical, and still we should use them, or still we can call them as traditional and alternative medicines. Means to this extent, people are ready to accept that some traditional medicines may be non-scientific in nature. This is what WHO is saying. Now, this definition was given by WHO in year 2002 to 2005. Across next 10 years, WHO has refined its definition again. And now WHO is saying that we can differentiate traditional medicine from complementary medicine. Okay. You can understand when I'm saying that I'm working on traditional or alternative or complementary medicines, it will be difficult for me to really tell what is definition of this particular term. What is complementary, what is alternative, what is traditional. We cannot define even these words properly. Okay. To such extent, there is a problem related to this particular pathology. Okay. Now, in case of traditional medicines, WHO is saying that these are indigenous medical systems. In case of complementary and alternative systems, they are saying that these are the medical systems which are not part of the country's own traditional or conventional medicine, or they are not fully integrated in dominant healthcare system. Means according to this particular definition of WHO, we should say that Ayurveda at least is not a complementary and alternative medicine. It is a mainstream medicine for India. Okay. Such kind of confusion is there about words also, and that is there in the year 2014 to 2023. Means up to 23, these continuing definitions are going to be referred throughout the world, and we are going to have this confusion about complementary and alternative medicines. Friends, with this particular confusion, let's go to actual Indian scenario. Do we have proper definitions for alternative medicines? No, there is sufficient confusion. But in certain court orders, in certain right to information kind of cases, government has disclosed that biomedical systems which are part of Ayush, they are considered as complementary and alternative medicines or traditional medicines in India. Okay. Now, those medicines include Ayurveda, Siddha, Unani, homeopathy, yoga, naturopathy. And just now I told you Sovarikpa also. So with this confusion now, let's go to actual research in Ayurvedic medicines or actual research in alternative medicines. WHO itself has said that in majority of the cases, lack of research or lack of research data is the biggest issue related to alternative medicines or traditional complementary medicines. So this is a survey carried out by WHO across 113 countries. And there, they have said that serious lack of research is there in alternative medicines, and that is the reason why acceptance of alternative medicines is the biggest issue. Okay. I'll share with you a couple of cases related to research in Ayurveda that is going on now. Okay. If you see this very recent article, which was published in 2015, where concepts of Ayurveda or theories of Ayurveda have been correlated with genome-wide analysis of single nucleotide polymorphism. And there, this particular research tells that whatever is said in Ayurveda regarding Vata, Pitta or Kapha Prakruti, that correlates with certain types of single nucleotide polymorphisms. Okay. So this particular piece of research has come up now. Can we say that this is going to contribute to acceptance of Ayurveda as mainstream medicine? We'll have to check whether this really happens or not. There is similar another paper which has come in Scientific Reports in 2016, where these authors, there is a famous author called Deepak Chopra. Many of you must be knowing this person. He is having many YouTube videos also, and he is a spiritual guru also. So in his research laboratory, he has said that Panchakarma can be used as a valid treatment. Okay. And this research has been published in Scientific Reports. Similarly, there is another important research article that has come in Scientific Reports in year 2016, that is regarding Amal Ki Rasayan. Okay. I am taking this as an example about the research in Ayurveda. This particular article has very exhaustively studied Amal Ki Rasayana, which is a simple medicine in Ayurveda. Amal Ki Rasayana is prepared by using Emblica officinalis fruits. They are powdered, and that powder is again and again soaked in the juice of amla again. Okay, for 21 days this treatment is given, and whatever resultant powder is there, that powder is called as Amal Ki Rasayana. And that powder, these authors have systematically shown to improve cardiac function. Okay. Now this is published in a journal which is having impact above 5. In those days, the scientific reports had impact factor above 5. And then very exhaustively, this particular research has been performed, and it was supported by SERP. Okay. DST SERP had supported this particular research. It has come up now. Now question comes, if suppose such piece of information is there with us, can we plan a clinical trial? This question I shared on that WhatsApp group which Nagarajan, the Yunus has started. Okay? And then there was some discussion regarding this, and I searched for further details regarding this particular Amal Ki Rasayana. And according to a government resolution, I came to know that there is no requirement of any clinical trial if you are using Amal Ki Rasayana for treatment of those disease conditions which are mentioned in Ayurvedic text. So friends, I want to share this confusion with you now. If suppose Government of India is giving us freedom not to prove effectiveness, not to prove clinical safety efficacy, and bring the particular medicine in market, can we say that we are supporting real research in Ayurveda? This question disturbs me. See, what this gadget I am showing you is related to manufacturing and sale of Ayurvedic medicines or Ayush medicines in Indian market. For that, if suppose you are using Ayurvedic medicine as per the text of Ayurveda, and the condition for which you are using them is also as per the text of Ayurveda, then there is no need for going to clinical trial. There is no need to even prove the efficacy of that particular medicine. Directly you can market that particular medicine. Okay. Now question comes, if you see Amla, Emblica officinalis, and literature in Ayurveda on Emblica officinalis, you will find at least 200, 300 different disease conditions in which Ayurveda prescribes Amla. Okay. Can we say that this is going to help us in some way? I am sharing one particular review article with you in which the uses of Amla have been given. Okay. For example, see, all these are Ayurvedic texts. This has been taken from Charak Samhita, where Amla is used for diabetes. Amla is used for anemia. It is used for urinary incontinence. It is used for neurological disorders. It is used for azoospermia. It is used for improving complexion. It has been prescribed for inflammatory swelling. Okay. It has been prescribed for cough. It is given for many other disorders like anti-aging. Okay. So see here, it is used for fainting. It is used for burning disorders, abdominal bumps. It is used for all kind of diabetes. Okay. So such kind of descriptions are there in Ayurvedic textbooks. Now question comes, how we are going to use this particular gadget then? If the gadget says that there is no need of testing Amla Rasayana anywhere, you can directly market it. We are not supporting the research in this case. Our research becomes difficult. It becomes redundant if we carry out research of this particular kind. Another thing is, government again tells us that if suppose there is textual rationale, see the words which have been used here. This particular guideline is saying, or gadget is saying, that if suppose there is textual rationale for use of a medicine, and there is published literature on that particular medicine, you need not to go for safety efficacy studies. Okay, you can carry out some pilot study and you can bring that medicine in market. Okay. Let me share with you this funny example. There is one herb called as Pureria tuberosa. If you go according to the Gazette, there is sufficient evidence in literature where this medicine is used as anti-fertility medicine. There is also sufficient information, published literature, where the same medicine has been given for sexual dysfunction. Okay? You can understand the controversy that can arise if we rely on literature on this kind of medicines. Same medicine is for anti-fertility effect in male rats. Same medicine is there for sexual dysfunction in human beings. Can we solve this kind of controversy? It is again difficult. Friends, regarding literature, again, there is a serious problem that across decades, nothing has changed. Okay? The same kind of medicinal plant is repeatedly tested for same kind of diseases. In Google, you can check this. Gymnema sylvestri antidiabetic activity, you will find references in 1960s where this medicine has been used for antidiabetic activity or tested for antidiabetic activity. If you see in 2019, again the same medicine has been evaluated for the same activity. Okay. So this becomes problematic as we start thinking about alternative medicines. It becomes difficult to define what research really means about these alternative medicines. Are we really able to conduct some research, or we are having some loopholes in the regulations themselves which hamper the research in this particular kind of medications? Okay. Friends, I am taking another complicated kind of system of medicines, that is homeopathy, and we can say this is the king of controversies. Everything related to this particular type of medications is problematic. There are no pharmacopoeial standards available. Principles of homeopathy are not standard, or they cannot be standardized in scientific terms. We cannot carry out clinical trials of homeopathic medicines because they are individualized type of medicines. Okay? They are having their unique manufacturing protocol for which there is no scientific basis. Okay? So many problems are there about homeopathy. The question comes, if suppose you come across a very prominent effect of homeopathic medicines, are we going to look at it as pharmacologists or not? Just in the beginning, I shared with you that even in very well organized research protocols, you can prove efficacy of a homeopathic medicine called Rustox. It is a strong anti-inflammatory drug. Anyone who is having access to anti-inflammatory protocols, including cell culture, can check this particular activity. It is open challenge for everyone. Okay. Now, in such cases, is it really possible that we pharmacologists can look at these particular medicines and try to solve these questions? So this thought process I wanted to share with you. This is the last case that I want to discuss with you about this homeopathic medicines particularly. Again, I have taken reference of corona. In corona, we are having specific kind of symptoms. Okay? And at least few of us know that homeopathic medicines are given considering the symptoms of the patient. Okay? If suppose a patient suffers from a particular symptom which is matching to the symptoms exerted by the medication, homeopathic medication, then that medicine is applied in that patient. Okay? So, in case of one medicine called as Plata orientalis, there is a description that this medicine has saved cases with suffocation and accumulation of mucus. Okay, so this is the description that tempted us or tempted me to check whether Plata orientalis can be used in corona patients or not. Okay. So according to principles of homeopathy, this is really logical to prescribe Plata orientalis in the patient who is suffering from suffocation and accumulation of mucus. Okay. Friends, if you see the availability of this particular medicine, it is available in India. It has been validated by homeopathic pharmacopoeial laboratory. There are standards available for this, and it is regulated as good as allopathic medicines if we consider. Okay. Now, if suppose you really want to standardize this medicine, or if you really want to look at this particular medicine, let me share with you that this is really a disturbing kind of medicine that we are having in homeopathy. Okay. This medicine is prepared by triturating live cockroach in alcohol, and drops of it are added to water and given to the patient. Okay. And according to homeopathic pharmacopoeia, then homeopathic method of treatment, such medications are allowed to be used in the patients. Now question comes whether we can really carry out some research on this kind of medications or not. And there are many such problems. But friends, you will find a research article even on Blatta orientalis where it has been checked for its efficacy in asthma models of experimental animals. Okay? Histamine-induced cupping or histamine-induced contraction of this bronchus, trachea, this kind of experiments have been done, and there this medicine has been shown to be effective. Okay? This is a big question for pharmacologists also, and this is where a real question comes, where we are really leading now. If someone is working in alternative medicines, should he continue working on alternative medicines in their original form, or he should go for isolated chemicals from that particular literature that is available in alternative medicines? Okay. For this, in United States, a clear guideline has been given. This kind of guidelines are not there in India, but in United States, this guideline has been given that if suppose if you want to use even a plant juice for treatment of some disease, that plant juice will be treated as a drug substance, and whatever rules and regulations are there for a drug substance will apply even for that fruit juice that you want to prescribe to a patient as a medication. Okay. Now question comes, if such a serious guideline is applied to alternative medicines, let it be Ayurvedic, let it be homeopathic, Unani or so, will these medicines really survive in international market? Will they be considered as medicines ever? These are the big questions which come to my mind. And let me ask you this particular last question, whether anyone from this particular group which has joined me for this discussion today can help me in validating anti-inflammatory activity of Rustox, which is a homeopathic medicine, which I have checked in my laboratory that it has strong anti-inflammatory activity. I want few pharmacologists to join me who are having access to in vitro assays. Simple assay will be there, LPS induced cytokine release from raw cells. And just let me know whether you really can reproduce these results in your laboratory or not. Okay, that was the main thought that had come to my mind, that I will be interacting with 32 pharmacologists today, and I will ask them this question, whether they can really collaborate with me for this particular kind of research. Okay, so friend, this was what I wanted to ask you. And again, let me share with you that this kind of clear-cut pharmacology can be established even for homeopathic medicines. Okay, I have tried this in my lab. Again, I want someone to come up and help me in validating my results in their laboratories. Let it be an industry or an academic laboratory, where imiquimod induced, imiquimod is interleukin, it is a TLR7 agonist drug which causes psoriasis-like symptoms in mice. Okay, and in this particular model, Rustox, a homeopathic medicine, very efficiently reduces cytokine levels. Okay, so again, this is an interesting finding that I want someone else to collaborate with me and replicate in their laboratories. Okay, we can go for combined publications. So friends, this was what I wanted to share with you. And then I'm keeping this particular session open for discussions now. Okay. I'm stopping this sharing. Just let me start the light and we'll discuss them. Okay. Now, Nagaraj and Yunus, you can unmute and start discussion.
Thank you, sir. It was a great session.
Yeah.
Very informative, and definitely helps many to understand the problems that we have in the development of alternative medicines. So I'll go with the. There are a couple of questions in the chat box. The first one is from Lakshman. So his question is, so what he wants to understand is, here it is. I wish to know if it's possible to ascertain concentrations of active experimental test substance at such high dilutions. Probably he's talking about the homeopathic thing that you exemplified. A simple dilution scheme will allow us to presume the concentrations. So they are not measured concentration, just a nominal concentration.
Yeah, that's what. In this discussion also, I mentioned that 15 CH comes to femtograms per ml concentration. Okay. Femtogram or attogram level concentrations are used, and at that level the medicine shows activity. And the medicine which is there in that it is a plant extract, actually plant or some animal extract. Just now I showed you that there can be a medicine in which even a cockroach is triturated in alcohol and that is diluted and that is used. So hypothetically you can say that it goes to femtograms, attograms or below that also.
So I hope that has answered Lakshman's question.
Can I?
Yeah, Lakshman. Lakshman, go ahead.
Patil sir, wonderful lecture.
Thank you.
I mean, I have learned a lot from this one. The only concern was whenever we go on to establish the dose or the mechanism, the fundamental thing is you have to be certain that a certain dose has been faithfully been delivered.
Right.
And that we know from the assays. And the levels at which you are mentioning, they are beyond the sensitivity of the very good equipments what we have in academia and even in the industry as well. Right. So that would be the first limitation in these studies. How would we know that the dose that we're giving, is it really 15C or 20C or whatever we hope to do? Because without that, the people from outside will not be able to have faith in what we're saying.
For this, the answer is we can collaborate, or Homeopathic Pharmacopoeia Laboratory of India will help us in this. Okay, this is a organization similar to our Pharmacopoeia Laboratory. For say, if suppose you are getting a sample from Pharmacopoeia Laboratory of India, will you be considering this as a valid sample or not?
Sir, from regulatory perspective, it is fine. But then in terms of a scientific, when you publish it, in order to convince the reviewer, you have to first present some data. Okay, I have used this particular instrument and this instrument detects, capable of detecting that. That should be there, no?
That is possible. That is possible. Even I have done this. Okay, I had gone to Homeopathic Pharmacopoeia Laboratory. I requested them for standardization of or standardized samples. I requested them for synthesize the medicine for me. And then I proved that particular medicine. So whole process was documented, and it was
perhaps Professor C.R. Patil, maybe you can just quote the analytical instrumentation that they had used to measure those level of concentration to Lakshman. His question is more to understand how did you measure and ascertain those concentration vis-a-vis the dose that you administered.
See,
he tried to understand the how did you
In case of homeopathic medicines, everywhere it is accepted that in beyond certain dilutions, you will not be able to determine the concentration using any instrument.
Okay. That
is the bottom line.
So it's a nominal dose. Basically, Lakshman, the thing is, since there is a limitation, they have just considered it as a nominal dose and went ahead.
Understood.
Starting material we are using for dilutions. The starting material It is standardized by using HPTLC, GCMS, LCMS, everything.
So, yeah, Professor C.R. Patil, there's one more question from Sushant Kamath. It's a similar question actually. The second question what he had is the establishing the mechanism of action or the pathway for that preparation in humans.
Right.
The possibility of that.
Yeah,
If
that's possible.
and yeah, his
Yeah.
additional remark was if we are able to do that in the animals and in the translation. When he says humans, there are two things: either in translation model or actually in humans. If
Right.
that is done, basically establishing the efficacy in humans, then
Right.
we can go ahead with the development.
Right.
So the biggest question, yeah, Professor C.R. Patil, I would like to add here is the safety thing probably will get from the books. Whatever Ayurvedic medications we choose from the Charaka Samhita or whatever scripts we have.
Right.
So overall safety would be there. Those that's why I mean those were used traditionally at the doses whatever they have mentioned, and
Okay.
for the indications what was mentioned.
Let me interrupt.
So yeah.
How you are saying that all Ayurvedic medicines are safe and they were tested in human beings?
No, I assume no, not tested in human beings. What I'm saying, the assumption,
this assumption
the
we're having because it is our medical system.
yes, the popular assumption is the Charaka Samhita, whatever has been written, it's all like the traditional medicines which have been given for years in the absence of modern medicine. This is the system what is used for years in Indians in our system.
Okay.
So if it is documented, then there is an observational data that these are safe.
Okay.
However, there is no scientific data at that time. They couldn't do it possibly. It's all observational data.
Right.
So if you go by that, then there is some element of safety, safety data available with those preparations in that type of formulation and dose, etc.
Right.
However, in today's case, there would be a big lacking what I see as far as these traditional medicines are concerned. So how do you, we will have to, first of all, we don't know the active ingredient in a formulation, like a Ayurvedic formulation, which particular chemical entity within that mixture is responsible. So because of that, you will not have a clear-cut PK or PKPD, etc.
Right.
Even if we go just by dose and all, how would we assure there won't be any drug-drug interaction? And if you want to check the drug-drug interaction, with what all constituents you will check with it, or what constituent you attribute to a particular drug-drug or food-drug interaction. So this is one piece of data I don't see anywhere with respect to traditional medicines.
Right.
Rest, it flows. I mean, like, yeah, if you're confident about the efficacy in preclinical species, then if you scale the doses to humans, you do the trials and get the data.
Right.
But how do you assure such drug interaction studies? I mean, those are needed actually. That's what I feel.
Okay, see, let me ask a couple of questions here. Someone who was working in small molecules where they could find the concentration of that particular molecule in the body, and then they correlated with its action, is one kind of research method. We cannot say that everything that is affecting in our body will be acting in similar manner. If you consider, okay, that's the question. Now there are 28, 30 pharmacologists here. Can anyone come ahead and test anti-inflammatory activity of Rustox in animal models? That is simple. Okay, anyone who is having pharmacology laboratory can do this. Can anyone come ahead and test this particular medicine? I'll pay for that. Okay, if someone is really interested in doing that, whatever expenditure is there, I will not be paying for the personnel, but whatever chemicals you need, I'll pay you for those chemicals. Can you come ahead and really see whether a homeopathic medicine exerts its action as anti-inflammatory drug or not? It will be at least 70% potent as that of diclofenac. If you compare its activity in femtograms with 5 milligram of diclofenac, Rustox will show you at least 70% activity of diclofenac. It is this interesting. Okay, how many of us really will get interested in this kind of activity? Can we come in? I wanted at least one person, one pharmacologist, to come ahead and say that, okay, it is such an interesting thing, and if you are paying me say 15,000 rupees for chemicals and animals, I will be repeating this particular activity in my lab. Is there anyone who can do this?
I think doctor people will do it.
Today itself, I'll transfer 20,000 rupees to their account. Let me check.
I think people will do it. Let's collaborate on that and start working on that.
Okay.
But
If one comes up, then I will think that this spending 1 hour together was having some meaning. Okay.
yeah, sure.
Hello, Professor Patil. Good evening. This is Dakshinamurthy. Maybe Nagraj and Eunice knows me well.
Yeah,
Good evening, sir. This is actually a wonderful presentation which I have brought forward. The main thing which Eunice also stressed is that the lack of research method in alternative or complementary or traditional medicines, or lack of knowledge. First, I will say that if you take an extract will have hundreds of constituents like tannins, alkaloids, and other things.
Right.
The first, it adds variability to your formulation.
Right.
Second is they are administered at different doses and different conditions like empty stomach and other things, because Ayurveda as well as Siddha mentions that this particular medicine has to be taken in empty stomach in this concentration and these things.
Right.
So we exactly don't know what amount of drug goes into the particular body, particular system or not.
Right.
And the third thing is that the way we collect the plants, for example, if the plant has to be collected at a particular altitude, will have a alkaloid content. It will not be same in the plant is collected in territorial, by meaning in the land which is not. So there are so many variabilities are there in taking the traditional research to a convention, so as to convince the allopathic medications. But once when you convince, then it becomes allopathic medicines. For example, for cancer, we have nearly 80% of the drug are from traditional medicines, only like camptothecin or etoposide or vincristine, vinblastine.
Right.
All the chemotherapeutics are from plants only, because they can able to isolate a single compound and characterize it. So even if we can do such a research in our lab, dedicatedly working, for example, one of my professor used to say that one PhD student, one research group should take one plant and work throughout their life. So that's a commitment we need, such that so as to brought forward our compound. Otherwise, it is so many given so many variations and so many things. It is difficult to convince the Western countries about the potent of our traditional medicines. This is my humble suggestion, sir.
Yeah, exactly, sir. But somewhere we should start with at least one medication, one medicine at least. So that's what I wanted to ask about Restox again. I was discussing with this all my friends. Banappa sir also I have discussed with regarding this. Nagraj also, when I was studying regarding this, I had contacted Nagraj also, and there with him also I had requested to check interleukin 17 levels and all. Okay. So like this, if suppose we collaborate and go ahead, we may come up with something worthwhile. There is Manjula madam who wants to ask question, I think. Madam, you have raised.
Hello.
Yeah,
sir, I'm Dr. Mrutyunjay.
okay.
I'm husband of Dr. Manjula. Myself and Manjula both working in JSS Pharmacy College.
I know, sir. I know. This your collaborators are.
We had last minute. It was very interesting, and thank you so much, sir, for wonderful presentation. Sir, two things I want to. One is question, and one from both of us I want to convey.
Okay.
That we are very much interested in collaboration. We'll write to you very soon, sir.
Sure. Actually, sir, my students are in collaboration with Manjula madam.
Yeah.
Particularly Harun Patel is there. Then
Okay.
Yeah, Nulvi is there. Nulvi is my friend.
Yes. Nulvi is my classmate and my roommate and hostel mate.
Yeah, right. So we know each other. But regarding this, particularly Restox, I had never talked with madam.
Okay.
So I've shared the details with you. If you feel it interesting, you can go ahead with that particular drug then.
Sure, sir. We'll mail you.
Sure.
Sir, my one understanding I need from you, sir.
Please.
You see now the homeopathy it's very difficult to explain, scientifically, but we have to understand and use it.
Right, right,
Now, as the dose it goes on dilution,
right,
so that means we say it is effective.
right.
And we'll give, according to my best understanding,
Hmm.
that the highest, the efficient means lowest dilution will give it to person
Right.
when his manifestations are
Like-
very high.
Right,
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 sir?
right. See, what happens is regarding this also there is sufficient confusion even in
Yeah.
the course of homeopathy.
Yes, sir.
When I discussed this about some homeopaths, I came to know that as you go on diluting the medicine, which they call as potentization, the medicine starts acting at level of mind and not at the level of body. So what they say is, if you use crude extract, it will act on your body
Yeah.
if there are physical symptoms.
Yeah.
But if you use higher dilutions, they will be acting at mind level. Mind level means what? See, if suppose you are suffering from arthritis, there is joint pain. This is known to us. Okay.
Yes.
But there are arthritis patients in whom joint pain increases in the morning. There are arthritis patients in whom joint pain increases in the evening.
Yeah, exactly.
If they go in some damp and wet place, for few arthritis patients, pain symptom becomes more. For
Exactly.
other patients, if they go to dry places, their pain increases. Okay. So, dependent upon this psychological modulation of the disease, homeopaths are saying that you should use a particular dilution of a particular medicine. Okay.
Yeah.
But as it is sufficiently confusing for them also, no one is coming up with any definite data. But one thing is sure, that if you search for literature on in vitro efficacy of this homeopathic dilutions, you will get hundreds of articles where systematically people have proved that they can affect the cell culture related activities also. That is something challenging.
Yes, sir. So this is challenging, like, because we normally in the human beings, we see the manifestations and those will be given.
Right,
But
right.
replicating that in the animal model would, or in vitro also very difficult.
It's very difficult, right?
Yeah. So anyhow, sir, it's very interesting. We'll keep in touch with you.
Sure.
We'll collaborate with you, sir.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. It was very interesting and informative, sir.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot, sir.
Thank you. Thank you. Is there anyone else who wants to contribute to this particular discussion?
Sir, good evening, sir.
Boliye, sir.
Sir, this is Banappa speaking.
Please go ahead.
Sir, very nice and very informative lecture. Discussion was very wonderful, sir. You have raised some of the very valid prevailing questions, in fact, about these various issues in traditional medicine research and its development as a drug. So it's all this complexity is because of the complex nature of the system itself, sir.
Right.
According to my understanding, a little bit of understanding in this medicine. So what I can say is it's a complex system, and the diseases are not understood in a simple way as we understand in a modern system of medicine based on abnormality in one or the other pathways.
Yeah.
But actually it is in case of Ayurveda, it is, they call it as a Vata, Pitta, Kapha, and like that, there is a way of their own understanding actually. Right. So accordingly, the system has been developed to address those complexities.
Right.
So having a comparison on par with this modern system is actually an unjustifiable effort, I can say.
Sure. Right.
No, that is otherwise no. Yeah. So what the best effort is that let us find a common ground, and so that let us put an effort in this direction to understand that their concept first.
Right.
So accordingly, we definitely can have an answer for that, and how to go about is the major bottleneck, I can say, in this research in traditional medicine. So when you want to address the complex system, sir, you should have a comprehensive approach.
Right.
The reductionist approach may not be, good approach for this. Let us now have a top-down approach. So let's put an effort in this direction to understand the system, using system biology tools. Of course, we may not have the access to this and skill to do all those things, but with the collaboration with the industry and some good universities, research institutions, definitely will be able to do that. And the other question which I noted in your presentation is that clinical trial about this, is it possible for these drugs? Because most of these are personalized kind of a medicine.
Right.
Yes, sir, it is possible. No, you may not be exactly to fit an individual cases, but as a group you can have an approach, and in the group itself you can have a subgroup, like stratified kind of an analysis you can have, so that now you can understand that in which population these drugs are more effective or more beneficial.
Right. Thank you, Banappa, for contributing to this discussion. That there are issues, and we will keep on discussing regarding this. I think. Okay, I have taken up almost 1.5 or 1 hour 45 minutes now.
Okay.
It was really encouraging that so many pharmacologists came together to discuss about the issues related to alternative medicines. There were 32 participants, and I feel this is a good number, okay, for begin with.
Yeah.
Sir, there is a medicinal chemist as well.
Yeah.
I
Thank you. It
the
was very
organizers,
informative and intellectual, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks for this seminar.
Thank you, sir.
I thank organizers for having this daunting task, so that it helps all of us to understand this system of medicine. Thank you, sir.
Okay, Banappa sir, will you contribute in this particular seminar, sir?
Yeah, sir. I'm
next
very
is,
much eager, and
next
sorry.
is Banappa sir is online. So
yeah, sir.
in the next seminar.
Definitely, I'll be very happy, and I'll take forward this effort.
Okay.
Definitely, the next session will be mine. I'll be very happy.
Yeah, I think that was the first session that was supposed to start, but due to unavoidable circumstances, we could not do it. If you remember, the whole webinar concept started with the question from Professor C.R. Patil, what dose he should go ahead if he wants to do a clinical trial. And we needed some answer for that particular question. We know how it is done for the NCEs. We know how it is done for the biologics. But what we don't know is how it can be done for the Ayurvedic or whatever complementary medicines. So we needed a person who is into it, who is at the research level into alternative medicines to answer that.
Yes.
Hopefully, the inputs that what would come from Dr. Banappa would help many researchers who are into Ayurveda, homeopathy, or whatever, for them to understand how to scale the doses for the clinical studies. Now, right now, that is something which is unanswered. Kind of doses that we get from animal studies, if you simply transfer using USFDA guidance, the number that you get for daily doses is huge. Kind of unbelievable. So I hope we get that kind of precise and more accurate information from Dr. Banappa in the next webinar. And I'm sure many will benefit from that webinar. This would be a natural add-on to the current.
One more last thing that I want to add is we will publicize Dr. Banappa's webinar still more widely. I will say that at least 1,000 participants will be there.
Yeah.
Definitely, sir. Definitely.
Sure. And then I am recording
happy to see
particular talk, and I'll put it on YouTube now, and I'll share the link with your group. Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
And,
okay.
So let's conclude for today. We have taken quite long time now.
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you so much, Professor C.R. Patil.
Thank you.
Thank you, one and all. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone who have attended this session. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Nagaraj and Yunus.
Thank you.
I am
Thank you
closing
all.
this meeting now. I'm closing this meeting.